he says, you're going to have to, the only way that you're going to do this right is you're going to have to read every one of these policies and learn every feature, every benefit, and explain what annuity is so it is simple so a consumer can understand it. And I was going, you got to be kidding me.
Hello, welcome to the Annuity Fundamentals podcast. This is our inaugural voyage. This is the very first podcast in this series that is designed to help insurance professionals add annuities to their business and help them expand their careers. We're going to have industry professionals on as guests. We're going to go through and we're going to have companies and representatives from different companies come in and explain their products. We're going to bring on highly successful agents and kind of give us their secret sauce. Tell us what really works for them. The idea is to have something that is of value to you, something that you can go through and look at and be inspired by and realize that, hey, if I've got a system, if I do what these people have done, then I can change my life and elevate my career in a whole variety of different ways. My name is Ryan Anderson. I'm going to be one of your hosts in this journey together. And this is my associate, Kylie Malott.
Hello. Yes, my name is Kylie Malott, and we're very excited to start this podcast and get you some valuable information. There's a lot of information out there, and we're going to put it in a small segment that's easy for you to use and implement into your business. And we're very lucky today. We're actually joined by Doug McDermott. He is the Annuity King. So we're very lucky to get to hear from him today, and hopefully we get some bits of wisdom and that will help you in your business as well.
Thank you.
Doug, you kind of give us a little bit of background about yourself. You and I have known each other for about a decade now, but your career goes back much, much further than that. Can you kind of tell us how you got started in this business? And more importantly, tell us what your first year was like.
Okay. Yeah, I got into business in July of 1979. Moved from Los Angeles to Sacramento and joined an independent hybrid captive agency. And the opportunity was for commission only, no draw, and no salary. That's how I started.
Now, and you started with no experience.
Zero.
Married with one or two kids at this point in time. One child. Okay, so keep going.
Right. Well, my child was just about ready to be born. So
okay.
I knew that this was going to have to be, if I didn't provide for them and I was the sole provider, that it was going to be an interesting time.
Okay.
But I went in, and Mel Harris, this gentleman was a retired E9 Air Force Master Sergeant. And he said, I am going to teach systems of how to get in front of clients, how to do a presentation. And he told everyone that he recruited a specific group of individuals like myself, same age, same backgrounds, and said, you're going to have to learn this system word perfect. I remember him distinctly saying that. You're going to have to learn the system word perfect, and I'll have to pass you off virtually every day. And so it was so specific in how he addressed that. But the very first week that I was there in July, he looked at the whole group that was there, all these agents, and he said, I am going to have someone volunteer to explain annuities in 2 weeks. And he was quiet. He looked in the room, and then he just pointed at me. He says, and you're going to be the one. He said, I'm just here. This is my first day. He says, in 2 weeks, you're going to explain everything about annuities. And he gave me this stack to read about annuities. And he says, in 2 weeks, you're going to present to everybody.
How did
a little
that
bit
go?
of pressure.
Yeah,
a little bit of pressure.
Yeah, a little bit of pressure. I was 23 years of age. And I looked at the room and I saw the difference in age and then those that were my own age. And I went, wow, this is going to be a humbling experience. Mm-hmm. But I took it to heart and I read everything, studied everything. And in the meantime, would go out in the field, and I had a couple trainers that would show me what to do or what to say, and I paid attention. I watched how they did their presentation, and knowing that I had to learn it word perfect, I had come from a background shortly that I had to learn something word perfect. It was about 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick. And I said, well, if I can do that, I maybe can memorize this.
Okay.
And I did. It was a way to explain health products, life products, but to always explain annuity products. And I didn't know what annuity was anyways. You know, I didn't even know what the other things I was really supposed to explain either. I just knew that that was what they wanted. And they said that I could build a career and have an opportunity. It wouldn't be a job, it would literally be a career. And that's really what I wanted. And I chose to go do that. But from July to the end of the year, December, I had only written 11 cases, which I eventually called enrollments.
Okay.
I had 11 enrollments for actual policies. And if you're commission only, no draw, no salary, and you only do 11
Yep.
from July to December, what do you think might happen?
Things would be rough. I mean, now were these big cases, little cases? Give us some idea of what you had here.
They were probably more the little size, to try to get things going. And yet I was so excited just for even the little. And that caused me to do a lot of reflections. I did side jobs on the side, knowing that this was what I want to do as a career. And I was doing construction side jobs that would not affect my insurance. I did them in all hours of the night and kept on practicing what I was asked to do for this career path. And at the end of that first year, I remember going to visit with my mother, had that time my first child, and I looked at a mirror. And I looked at the mirror and goes, is that really me? I was a running back in college, so at one time I was wide. But if you could imagine losing that much weight, because if you are not having a chance to make these policies happen, you're going to be kind of starving Marvin, right?
So exactly how much weight did you lose?
A lot. I went down to about 142 pounds from my playing weight in college, which was 200 pounds something, down to that amount. But
So
I
almost
wasn't
unrecognizable.
unrecognizable. Yeah, that was. But I don't quit. I'm a non-quitter. And at the end of the year, I just had to figure out, you know what? If I'm going to stay in here, I looked at the difference in weight I lost. If I lost the same amount the next year,
There wouldn't be much left.
there wouldn't be anything left.
You know, it's funny you talk about that. I remember when we were working up north, and we've been together for years. And do you remember what how I described the first year to new agents?
Yeah, and I think it was just a good warning. The first year is like crawling over broken glass. You're going to figure it out. You're going to learn an entire new business, and it's going to be rough.
Yeah. I mean, we really wanted to measure those expectations. But I mean, that's an exceptional case. So you went through, you lost 60 pounds, 6 months, 11 small cases. Then what?
Well, I mastered that presentation. And by mastering it, then I had to find ways to get in front of more people, right? That time, they said, go get a cross-street directory and knock on doors even. You know, we were on the telephone so many hours a day. Well, I did that. I was on so many hours a day, and I made appointments so that I could fill up the next week or the next 2 weeks. But after you would get so many calls and so many appointments, I realized if it's going to succeed, you couldn't just have what they told me to do. I needed to have 50% more or double that. That was my mentality. Was if they said you're going to have at least 11, I knew my goal was to have 50% more than that, or literally try to get twice that amount.
Yeah.
So I started also knocking on doors, and I had put together a little presentation of introducing myself, and I started getting indoors every time I would go knock on doors, and I had this little presentation and people would let me in, and I was able to ask if they had policies to serve, and they would go get their policies to serve. And I started doing just that and explaining whatever it was. I'd look at it and learn and be able to answer questions for them. And I did that because I was a hybrid captive agent. And then I would collect the policies. I'd give them a written receipt when I would do the door approach. And then told them I'd make an appointment to come back 3 days and we'd do a comparison. So that was part of that. But then the telephone calls that I was making was for a specific reason to come in and share my presentation, which I had that going. And then at the end of the year, they also said how important it was going to be. You better master how to get referrals and recommendations. Well, in this interim time, I said, well, that's great. That's 3 ways. I better have a 4th way. And so I went in the community, and this lady by the name of Judy Kist was a dog trainer for police departments. And her friend referred me to her. And a long story short, she gave me an assignment to build 44 dog houses. And I built the dog house just like she wanted, painted them, cutted them, assembled them. And she said she would give me a dog if I would do that, completely trained. And I thought, wow, that might be another way to go meet people. Walk this poor dog to death. And but you just can't name a dog just because who's going to ask if it's just the name, Sam. My dog's name is Sam, and who's going to stop you? So I was unique in naming. My dog's name was Heelerin Zenock Moriankimer the First, and so I named him Zenock. And I would give that whole name, and people would see the dog. It was unbelievable. It was a Doberman completely trained that Judy had trained. And people would literally stop me and say, that is an unbelievable dog. And I could say anything that dog would do it immediately. I'd just tell it to sit, and it didn't even hesitate. It looked straight across. It would sit with its ears pointed. And they'd say, how did you do that? He says, well, it's a trained dog. And he says, well, can you do this to it? And I'd say, down, and it immediately froze. It would get down, do not a thing. And if it said, well, how do you do this? And I said, well, it was trained to do this. And I would start showing a little bit about the dog. But he says, now tell me, what was the name again? I says, oh, short, I just call him Zenock. He says, what is it that you do? I was waiting for that opportunity. And so I tell him, I'm new in the business. I'm in insurance. And I started doing my spiel, and I'd always had a pad of paper or the 3x5 cards. And I'd bring it out, and I started asking, can I get your name, telephone number, and can I make an appointment to come back? I call you, and I can visit with you what I do for a living. And these people just looked at me like, okay. And I had that other opportunity of getting in front of people. So I was trying to do anything and everything that I could. Well, starting January, it was the new year. You do your goals, and I said, I can't do what I did last year. I can't afford that type of weight, and I've abbreviated how I lost the weight too, because I just wouldn't quit. I don't want to bore you with that, but the key was I wasn't going to quit. I knew the fundamentals because that's what I understood. They taught me fundamentals, and I go, well, that fundamentals really, really important. I understood from the fundamentals. My father served with General Patton, and he explained fundamentals to me. I played sports, high school, got hurt in college, and I understood fundamentals. Well, starting January, with all those cards that I had collected from my poor dog, and think about it, when most people come home and your dog's excited to go for a walk, right? Not my dog. My dog knew I'd come home take it for a walk and was going, oh, no, not again. Because what was I using the poor dog to do?
I mean, meet people.
Meet people.
Yeah, you're working that dog.
Yeah, I was working that dog to death. And I had collected all these 3x5 cards. I had made the telephone calls. And so I learned how to use a cross-street directory. And I used the cross-street directory to type names, addresses, telephone numbers. That's what helped me do knocking on doors. And I had a completely unique spiel to get a chance to get inside. And starting January, I did an application, which I later called an enrollment, every day.
I've heard that story. You've shared that with me many times over the years. And something that I really kind of that stuck out to me is that, again, we've got careers and we're trained and we meet different people over the years and through different experiences. You go to a training here, a company there, maybe even different industries. But something about the insurance world, and really any world, but really more so this one I found, because we are independent. We are that if you are not producing, you can be as busy as you want, but if you're not producing, you're not getting paid and you're not moving forward.
Correct.
That one of the keys to the success, and again, looking at it, is what people do in their private time when they don't have to do anything.
And no one is watching you.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
No one was watching you.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you went through and you hustled. And so I'm going to go out and I'm going to go for a walk. I need to take a walk, take my kids for a walk. But the fact that you were like, all right, we're going to be out here, we're going to be doing this. Or in the evenings, probably after everybody went to bed, you're up studying, learning the presentation. And I think and the other thing that struck me about that was they said you needed 11 appointments, but you felt you needed 15 or 20 or whatever it was. We came up in a similar thought process. Your calendar wasn't full until you had 15 appointments scheduled for the next 5 days. 5 days.
Yep.
And it's 15 to 18 is where they're at. But don't stop calling. Don't stop knocking doors. Don't stop doing drop-bys, whatever the method was, until you had 15 appointments. And what I realized is that, and this was a hard-learned lesson, that I hit that 15, then I'd stop. And I was like, okay, because it was hard. It was hard getting them. But there was a curve on growth, on income, on success. And it was an exponential curve that it was pretty much flat till I hit 15. But as soon as I hit 18 appointments, it shot up like this. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen.
Opportunity.
Yeah, those extra 3 appointments. And I don't know if it's because I was talking to more people were kept, but that extra piece. And over the years, we've seen agents that do that bare minimum. All right, we get the 11 appointments in your case, or the 15 in ours. Times are a little bit different. And we've seen them come and go. They just couldn't make it. But that was a key difference there that I think is really important to get through. The idea of the opportunity and I heard one time that it's not your level of dedication to something, it's your level of discipline. And one of the things that I looked for I read that book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. We've talked about that. That's an amazing book. And it was a quote in there, and I may or may not get this right, and I think it's James Clear that said it, so I hope that if I'm giving the right person credit, it's definitely not me. He says, we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. And having an appropriate system in place, having those, I've got to get this specific number of appointments, but my system is not 11 appointments. My system's 16 or 15 or whatever it is, more than that. And that's a great example that it served you well for a good chunk of your career.
I think the key, though, was my passion.
Speaking of your passion, so I want to circle back. You talked about the first 2 weeks in there. You were 23, and he said, I need a volunteer, and you're it.
Yeah, I didn't even volunteer. I wasn't going to raise my hand.
But what happened? I mean,
How did that work out? What did you go back? What did he give you?
He gave me a stack, and I'm not exaggerating, a stack of companies. I bet you it was close to a dozen. I know it was more than 6, that's a half dozen, but at least a dozen of companies.
That had to be so intimidating.
Oh, when you just do that, my eyes went from...
Did he have it like prepped, like a pile on the table there? He said, follow me back into the room and just handed them to you.
He already had it. He already knew what he was asking, and he had just selected, and he says, it's you. So he says, you're going to have to, the only way that you're going to do this right is you're going to have to read every one of these policies and learn every feature, every benefit, and explain what annuity is so it is simple so a consumer can understand it. And I was going, you got to be kidding me. And I said, okay, fine. Then I'm up for the task. And I studied at night. I get up early in the morning, stayed up all night, and was doing this studying, and came back and realized that annuities was not an investment. It was just a contract. And so I had that first thing, well, this is a contract. All right. What does a contract have? It has features and benefits, because that's all I was reading. I was just trying to understand what the heck it was.
Yeah.
If you've never known what annuity was at 23, did you know what annuity was?
No.
No.
At 43, I didn't know what annuity was.
All right. But I was just going, I don't know what annuity is. But then it was being put into such a position, and then understanding features, benefits, and that it was a contract where you put money in called a premium or a deposit. And I was learning all these different terms, and none of them were using the same terms. So I had to learn all these new terms that some called a premium, some called a deposit, it was a single deposit, single premium, some was a flexible, and I was going, what in the world does this mean? So I'd have to do more reading, and each policy, and some companies you could tell that did not like somebody else's company. And so I was having to, see how they put down so-and-so over this. But then I realized these are just features and benefits inside contracts. And there were three primary things you had to do. One is that you wanted to grow that contract. Mm-hmm. That was one choice. Two was at a period of time, the main reason for these annuities was to take out income. And so I had to learn about income, how it was taken out, what are the different choices of incomes. And I just kept reading and reading on that. And then he threw in, well, what is a single premium media annuity? I go, what? And that's an income, but you put it in a single premium. And I had that was part of one of those companies, that was their specialty. And so I was just going, what has that got to do with the flexible premium deferred annuity, single premium? And I was getting hit on that. Then it also had a section that talked about, well, at death, you have to give a legacy. Mm-hmm. So I realized from the very beginning that primarily annuities with all these different features and benefits, they were used for growth, income, legacy.
So, now looking back, I'm sure when you first started, I'm just putting myself in your shoes. 23, brand new to the business, been there for 5 minutes, and they're saying, okay, I want you to explain this concept to all of us. And then, so you do, right? Your eyes get wide and you're just like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? But you do it, right? You're not a quitter. So you do it, fast forward a year. Do you think you would be at that place a year later if you didn't do that right up front?
I am sure getting the crap beat out of me helped me.
Yeah.
You think, and I don't use colorful words, so that was, understand.
I get you.
But what it did was helping me understand that if you had a life contract, you needed to have growth.
Right.
So where could you get growth on minimal amounts? Well, the flexible deferred annuity, you could do it at that time as low as like $10 a bank draft.
Yeah.
And I was going, so can you imagine, here I'm writing all these policies at the time, and then I called them enrollments later, but I was writing numbers. I wrote more than my entire office, but mine were how big? How big were my?
Small?
Little, because what was I learning? All I was trying to do was have someone agree. And so did I know how to get the large dollars? Did anyone train me to go and ask for this? No, I just did what?
What you knew how. You figured, you figured something out. So could that actually clear something up for me? Because in my mind, when you said I went out and I started getting these enrollments, and after that I got one enrollment every day for the next however many years, and I'm thinking, holy cow. And I'm thinking it's the same 60-page application I'm doing now with a single premium, and I'm doing a $400,000 or $200,000 or $1 million rollover, and I'm thinking he's doing this every day. How in the heck? It was at times must have been good because the applications were simpler then.
Oh, life has changed so much from an application that was 4 inches by 6 inches.
No, we're not talking deep. That's like the printed space on the page.
Here's one slide.
Sign here.
Have to get
sign here.
And then sign it after you ask what their name was, address, social security. You'd have to ask different things, and then suitability. But the opportunity was, I didn't know any difference.
Yeah.
I just kept on asking people, does this make sense to you?
Sometimes ignorance is bliss in that way.
It really
don't know any better. So Doug, your first 6 months, you literally were starving to death. Then your next 6 months,
I was still starving to death, but I was
you were writing enrollments
I
every day.
was
When
writing.
did you start having fun?
literally when I said, I think I can do this.
When was that?
Yeah, how far into the process was this?
I was told virtually every day I was going to fail.
By who?
When I'd go into a home, I also realized that if I was going to win, someone else had to lose, right?
Right.
I learned that really, really quickly. Even though mine were small, some of them didn't have policy, so I didn't have to worry about that. There was not someone coming back and...
Oh, so you're talking about for you to win, you were replacing somebody else's policy. Okay, so the other agent that wrote it was the guy losing.
Right?
Okay,
And how many years do you think that other agent was in the business? A long time.
Longer than your 5 minutes.
Oh my goodness, yes. I still remember my first case that was not this teeny little one. You know, I was just writing them, and I had learned a system of asking on life insurance. They say, well, how much life insurance? And they gave me this formula out of a book. And I just said, well, this is what this said, the insurance industry as a whole is saying. So I'd ask them, how much do you make? And they give me an amount and look at a formula and says, well, this is how many times you needed to have it. Here's the minimum, here's the maximum, and here's the middle. Which one is going to be best for your family? This is no joke. And they says, well, I can't afford the most, or I don't want the littlest one, I'll do the middle one.
Yeah.
And I said, great. Well, then let's go ahead and I'll do that. And oh, by the way, don't you want to have income to do that? You know, to pay out? Because I was doing term, because I didn't know anything else. I did the policies and throw in the annuity. And if it was long-term care, I throw in the annuity. If whatever it was, I threw in the annuity.
So when did you have the epiphany? I can do this, and
Well,
I'm good at it.
The very first case that I was sharing this couple that was many times my age. You know, I found out that there was a niche to go to. I worked with those who were 65 and older. Then they told me for this type of approach, you have to work with this client, knocking on doors, you're going to be doing this. So I was working 4 different, you know, how can you keep doing all the different ones? And I was going, each has a place, but I'm going to have to find a home. And this one couple, I can still even visualize them. You know, that was my epiphany so much is I wrote this couple and I was talking to them, took care of the life insurance. And I just brought up, have you ever heard of an annuity? And they looked at me like, it says, no, do you know what an annuity is? And I said, I actually know what an annuity is. That's why I asked you. And they came back like, no, what's an annuity? And I said, it's a contract where you have an opportunity to put deposits in on a monthly basis or quarterly basis or once a year or just one payment. It can grow, and when you're ready to retire, you can take income out and you can have it guaranteed. When you die, you can give it as a legacy to something. And this couple looked at me and says, that really sounds interesting. We'd like to do this. And so I was used to doing what type of?
Small.
Small. And their comment was, well, we'd like to start off with $100,000.
This is the
$100,000,
70s?
yeah.
This was the late 70s.
Okay, now let me ask you something. I mean, just to put perspective, what was the commission?
Outside of dropping my jaw down and not understanding,
pick yourself up off the
I'm
floor.
used to a $10 a month or $25. I thought that was really great when I got $25. What about a $50?
What was your compensation on that?